there was an explosive finish to the Goldmoney Asian Rapid tournament. In the final, we have Levon Aronian here playing white against Vladislav Artemiev. Remember, set 1 was won by Aronian. This is set 2, game 2. Aronian had already won that first game. Artemiev, looking to try to hit back, plays a modern defence. Aronian plays quite a modest system with c3, but a very sensible system. The c3 pawn just supporting d4 and just keeping that nice centre. Bishop d3 defends the e-pawn. And here black has to choose between playing for e5 or c5. c5 is a decent move. And here white has a choice. You can exchange here straight away, or you can just try and preserve this centre by playing h3, which Aronian does. And why not? After this move, preventing bishop g4, then there's going to be very little pressure on the d4 pawn. Rook e1, e5. Now the position looks a bit like a Spanish actually once this pawn comes to e5. So white could exchange straight away, play a position like this, and a4, knight a3 to get control over the light squares. That's quite reasonable. But Aronian just held the position with bishop e3. Bishop is safe on e3 because white has played that pawn to h3, preventing knight g4. b6, knight d2, and knight c6. That's why b6 was played, to support that pawn. Rook c1, never a bad idea to put the rook opposite the queen. So it means after this exchange, you can see black's queen is somewhat embarrassed there. Rook e8 played. Here, big decision for white. Do you hold that centre, or do you close it, or do you exchange? How would you play there? I thought Aronian might just play a3 with the idea of b4 just gaining more space. But instead he closed the position straight away with d5, and then he played b4. Well, it's a very decent way to play it. So white potentially wants to exchange here and use that c4 square for the knight. Knight d7 played, so if pawn takes pawn, then you recapture with the knight, and that gives the knight quite a nice square. So there is no need for white to exchange here. Not yet at any rate. Knight f1, the knight coming around to the king's side, because having played the knight back, black is potentially looking to break with f5. c4 pushes the bishop back. And now if black hangs around, if black hesitates, then white will get quite a nice clamp on the king's side with g4 and knight g3, and potentially go for a kingside attack. The position looks very much like a Spanish now, actually. Over the last few weeks, I've shown quite a few games where white has this very natural kingside attack. So Artemiev decides to play f5. Now that is a very double-edged move. Of course, if black gets time to perhaps play knight f6, put pressure here, or sometimes even push on with f4, then everything has worked out fine. You get quite a nice kingside attack. The danger is that after this, black's king could become exposed. Let's see how this works out. Bishop g5, threatening bishop takes knight, and bishop takes pawn. So how does black counter that threat? Knight f6, certainly move to be considered. So the bishop supports this pawn. If black can hold these pawns, he's doing pretty well. He'll be able to use those as cover and then shift his forces to the king side. There's a tactical problem, which is very typical of this position. White can take here, and d6, take here, and now with the position opening, these pawns are really vulnerable. Knight e3 is a nice move. Looking at two pawns, looking at that d5 square, white is definitely better there. Black's problem in this kind of position is that it's very hard to connect these pieces with the king side, whereas really, white is pointing in the right direction here. Anyway, after bishop g5, e4 by Artemiev. Again, if black manages to hold these center pawns, then he can build up his pieces behind them. Question is whether white can break through quickly. I was looking at moves like knight d4 here, or knight h4. Both interesting, but Aronian found another move which is absolutely brilliant. Knight g3. I just assumed the knight would have to move, but no, knight g3 is a very clever move. Well, black could try and hold the situation, but it's difficult. For example, knight e5 springs to mind. Then exchanging, and you can take here. Rook takes e4. I mean, this is incredibly dangerous, with this rook potentially swinging over to the king side and the queen with these bishops as well. Train on the king side is very dangerous. But after knight g3, Artemiev took the bull by the horns and took the piece. Let's see what happens. Knight takes f5. There's a pin on the e-file and obviously pressure here. Knight e5 blocks the e-file. And here is the really clever idea. He didn't take on e7, then just rook takes. Instead, Aronian exchanged off that important defensive piece, bishop on g7, and he took on e5. So he'd obviously foreseen this a long way off. Takes, and d6 wins back material. So the moment white is a rook down, but there are two very strong continuations. Aronian went for queen takes pawn. He could also have played bishop takes, which just leaves black's pieces rather shut out. You can see connection to the king side is very poor. White certainly has a wonderful initiative there. Instead of that, he played queen takes pawn, which is also incredibly strong. Maybe just a bit more straightforward. Queen takes f3. Now let me see. Well, there are threats here and here, so the king is in trouble here. If queen takes pawn, rook d1, hit the queen, and then, well, worst case, you can just take that rook in the corner and win everything back with interest. So queen takes f3 just played. Artemiev played knight g6. And actually, there is only one way for white to play here. If you continue with the kingside attack, in fact, black survives this. Remember, black is a rook up, but instead it's possible just to take the rook in the corner. But watch, because this hangs on a little tactic. Now, the queen is threatening just to return to play with, well, not just an extra pawn, but black's king is ripped open, basically. So bishop b7, queen takes pawn, the queen looking a little bit offside there. Queen c6, threatening mate, f3, defends, and rook a8. So how do you get out of this? White's play. There is only one way to play. Only one move wins for white. And of course, Aronian would have had to have foreseen this from several moves off. d7. So if rook takes queen, you just get a new queen and everything is still wonderful for white there. White is two pawns up with something like rook d1 and rook d7 coming. It's winning. So d7 just played, queen takes pawn, and now the queen can escape with all this wonderful extra material. At the moment it's two pawns, but in a sense the pawns are irrelevant. The fact that black's king is very exposed and white has all these beautiful attacking pieces, this decides the game. Now the queen moves in. Check. Queen takes bishop. Aronian plays it in a very straightforward way. So he's ready just to give a check here. Or indeed just move the rook in. And now the game finishes with bishop e7. And black really had nothing better. So rook takes knight is on the cards. There was a check. And here Artemiev decided to resign. Yeah, rook takes knight is just the end. So what a spectacular finish. After that, Aronian had already scored 2 points. The best that Artemiev could do would be to level it. And a draw in the second set, obviously not good enough for him. So with this victory, Levon Aronian wins the Goldmoney Asian Rapid and $30,000. Not bad. I think Aronian played in a very fresh and creative way throughout the tournament, actually. He won the preliminaries, don't forget. So, he really did prove himself all the way along. Played very quickly, played on intuition, didn't play perfectly. You can't when you're playing so quickly and in rapid chess. But he got a kind of momentum going and showed some really nice artistic touches. This move, knight g3, a wonderful move. Hope you enjoyed my coverage of this rapid tournament. Do check out all the videos. And if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe to the channel. There are loads of videos there for you to enjoy. If you're interested in openings, middle games, whatever, you'll find something there for you. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And do consider supporting us via PayPal or Patreon. Check out the video rewards and newsletters and stuff. You'll see a video on the Patreon channel on the channel homepage. So do support us. Thanks for watching.